time you want to save, but at the same time, I am always an advocate of doing stuff together,
Yes.
You're going to a 5-star hotel.
Yes.
I don't want that under the stars. I want you got a 5-star.
Okay.
But I'm an advocate.
Welcome to the new Foundation Christian Ministries B1 Marriage Ministry video podcast. I'm your host, Donald McFarlane, and with me
is your co-host, Natalie Irving Mattox.
very well. It's great having you once again, Natalie, as we continue to focus on money matters. But before we delve into the matters, Natalie, bring us up to speed on some information.
Yes, we want to thank you for tuning in each week. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Foundation Christian Ministries. Press the bell for notification. Thank you.
Very well. So money matters and money matters.
That's right.
So here we are continuing this very interesting topic as it relates to couples, and we are very privileged to have with us a couple who has consented to be open with us in as much as is comfortable about themselves and about money issues. We have the Peddies who are very present with us, and I want to say thank you so much, Walrick and Kamika, for joining us on set. We always like to learn to also help our audience understand a little bit of the persons who speak to us from here. So, Walrick, you want to tell us a little bit about you? I know that you are, in terms of the nature of your job, International Development Officer. What does that really mean?
Well, I currently work for an international agency, and my role as an international development officer is one that allows me to coordinate and manage programs within the Caribbean region, Jamaica included, to work with institutions like the government institutions, various agencies, to build the capacity, to strengthen their ability to be more responsive to their citizens and to increase the whole resiliency of the institution to be more prepared.
Right.
So, international agencies such as the one I work with help to support those types of initiatives to strengthen Jamaica's ability to be a more resilient country.
Indeed. And bottom line with all that networking capacities, really, it could say it's about money, wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, Jamaica is a developing country, and a lot of countries in the region need more resources. They don't have enough resources to have the necessary infrastructure, healthcare, and all of these type of things to make our lives more livable.
Right.
So, I mean, that support oftentimes donors would help to support. They see a need, they see a gap, and they try to support the country in being able to achieve that objective.
Yes.
So, like Vision 2030 for Jamaica, a choice place to live, grow, and raise families. All of these things will help to achieve that ultimate outcome.
Yes.
Right.
Got you. And then here you are beside your wife, Kamika Peddy, who is a medical doctor, consultant in the field of internal medicine. Kamika, you'll have to explain that to me and to us what this is all about. Yes.
Okay, so internal medicine is a field of medicine that deals largely with, illnesses that you usually need medicines to help improve. Some people sometimes don't understand the difference between a general practitioner and internal medicine, but we are trained to deal with more complex medical issues. And it is generally like organ function, chronic diseases like high blood pressure, diabetes, and many, many others.
Right. So that's what your life really takes on this. How did you actually end up in this field, if I may ask? What inspired you?
It wasn't a moment where I just woke up one day. I just thought about it becoming a doctor. But a lot of the influence came from my family background. My younger sister actually wanted to be a doctor from a young age, and my other sister also wanted to become a dentist. And then, high school came, and then, we really started to have to think about, okay, what would I do for a living? And for some reason, that's what I got gravitated to. I don't know if it was influenced with, my other siblings, but that's what I decided to do, and it so far has worked out well.
Needless to say, there's gratification, all right?
Yes.
But before we get to the substantive reasons why we are here, Walwick, you are into health and fitness yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm a certified health and wellness coach.
Yes.
And I mean, for me, health and wellness is important, to be able to function at the most optimal level,
Yes.
to better serve your home, your family, your community. And one of the things for me, I was overweight a couple of years ago and had a lot of chronic back pains. And for me, health and wellness was something that I saw that was, necessary.
Yes.
And there was a physical transformation, but there was also the mental transformation as to what is it that what's my ultimate goal.
Yes.
And for me, aiming at health is one of the most important things because it allows you to really respond to every other aspect of your life as well. So that's important.
Well, Natalie will come in a moment, but my producer George embarrassed me last time around, albeit not on set, where he was asking me not to put my shirt in my pants, I think because there was some bulging that he saw. And then my wife is telling me recently that I have to change my diet. So you are saying if I talk to you seriously, you could revolutionize this figure to look more presentable and live healthier.
Well, it's more than talking. It's about doing as well. But it's a part of your lifestyle. The lifestyle changes. I mean, stress. A lot of people don't understand that stress is a contributor to weight gain. Your cortisol level can increase, and that can contribute to eating. It can contribute to more in terms of fat storage and all of these type of things. So it's a series of different things that you have to take into consideration. But once you're willing, once you're able, and once the commitment is there, you can do anything.
All things are possible.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, so I think let's get to the business at hand. So, Walrick and Kamika, so tell us a little bit about how both of you met.
You want
Who wants to go? He's deferring to you, Kamika.
Yes, so how did we meet? So what happened was that he saw me in church and he decided to approach me. That's how simple it was. I didn't know. I have been that same church. I have been going for years, and it's actually generational because my grandmother, who is now deceased, she attended that church, and then it was passed on to my mother and then us. So I didn't know. I didn't see him. I didn't recognize him. I didn't know he was even there or coming at all. And then eventually he told me that he recently started going. So I was just sitting down in church. It was at the end of the church. Church service was finished. So I was getting up and moving out of the pew. And I just saw him come up, and he just said, "Hi, my name is Warwick. Nice to meet you. What's your name?" So, I mean, that took me by surprise because not many people, approach me like that. And, even though it was kind of shocking, but I was like, wow, he's a brave man. So and then from there on, we started to communicate on Facebook, and then eventually we decided to meet. And a few days later, we were, we knew that we were meant to be together. Yes.
Warwick, you will have to clear up the air. Because obviously you were not quite listening to all that the preacher was saying.
I was listening.
Yes.
And I had to just go in confidence, So, Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, I saw her, actually saw her before, and I didn't get the chance to. And then I remember when I introduced myself to her, she was like, okay, like looking at me like, okay, who is this guy?
Yes.
But then I went on to do some research on Facebook, trying to, I tried to find her on Facebook and I couldn't find her. And then I found a friend of mine who was a friend of hers, and, I started to ask about her. And then, eventually we started to talk, we exchanged numbers, and over time, we started to learn a lot more about each other, likes and dislikes, goals, aspiration, that kind of thing. And, here we are now.
Very interesting.
Yes, interesting. So how long have you been together?
8 years this March.
Yeah.
In terms of your marriage.
Right, so
Yes.
for 8 years.
Right,
yeah,
married,
8 years
right,
married.
right.
But we met from
We
12
met
years,
about
8, 9,
for
10.
3 years prior to that.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you've passed the 7-year itch, so that's good. That's a good milestone. Bishop is too old to know the 7-year itch.
But a few things in that. One is intentionally or not, but it really played to the script where there was ample time prior to you getting married. And that obviously laid a good foundation. Like you said, learning likes and dislikes and those kinds of discussions before you came to that. You were about to comment.
No, it's something you were saying in terms of, it's very strange because before I met her, I was in a financial slump, as a single man living.
Money matters.
And I had walked away from a job that I had because, there are certain things that I did not like, and I didn't think it was conducive to my health and integrity, and I decided to walk away.
Yes.
But then, at that point in my life, rent started to back up, credit card became overdue, can't pay car insurance, and a lot of challenges. And I remember reaching a point in my life that I was saying, wow, how did I get to this point? And I think it was my mother. I used to go to the church, that same church when I was younger.
Okay.
My mother went to, the church as well, and I decided, no, it's time to go back. My mother was very influential in this. And I remember going back to church, and then after committing myself to the Lord, went into discipleship training, then it's almost as if a series of things have started to happen that started to just unravel things that, certain obstacles you had. Yes. Then I ended up meeting, Kamika, and a whole series, which is going to be basically another show. But, the topic is so important, money matters, because before I met Kamika, I was the kind of person that, I didn't tithe, and I pinched. I say, if I give this, I won't have enough. And all of my efforts to pinch and have enough was just enough. And sometimes it wasn't enough. But when I made that commitment in giving myself to the Lord, I realized that certain doors, as if people don't understand this thing, but it's as if I've switched.
Yeah.
My landlord changed, and it was a pastor, and he said, okay, no, I'm going to work with you. Somebody called me from the bank and said, no, I'm going to work with you. Then I started to get these people that came into my life that gave this kind of support and advice that kind of guided you. So by the time I met Kamiko, all of that debt and that situation was basically resolved for me to end that chapter of my life and then move into a new chapter. Oh, okay. So, yeah. So here we are now.
Yes.
Indeed.
I would love to hear more.
Well, certainly.
Part 3.
Yes. But clearly you are referencing your own journey and, success, one might even say, to an encounter. Not that, becoming a Christian was a critical time in your own life and so on.
Right.
And though many persons will become skeptical about matters of tithing and so on, you are seeing a correlation between being faithful in terms of your finances and doors being open.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a basic. The more you give, the more you receive. Yeah. The simple.
Good. Well, we'll explore
agree.
some more, Natalie.
Yes, but you know what I'd like to know though is how critical was marriage counseling for both of you? Was it something that was easy for you to do?
Did they do it?
Well, did you do it? That's the first thing. Yeah, that's a good point, Bishop.
Yes.
Did you even go there?
So, one of the things I have to, highlight is that it was one of the things that my mother thought that was extremely important before you get married is to go and do counseling. So my two sisters had gotten married before I did. And I think she was one main instigator for them to do that. And likewise for us. So I had no problem with it at all. I mean, when I mentioned it to Warwick, he agreed.
Okay, good.
And because it was easy because we were both members of the same church.
Right.
And, we could easily approach our pastor and he was the one who was going to marry us. So he did a couple sessions with us.
He did a couple sessions, but we also did some external sessions
Oh,
with another
yes.
institution. I
We
think.
went,
Yeah.
yes, we did.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. So, so that means it was in fact important to both of you.
Laying a good foundation.
Exactly.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
that is extremely important.
Yes.
And some people overlook it and think that it may not be important, but I mean, if knowing what I know now, I probably would have started from before.
Yes.
And then even now, sometimes, if you say that you're going to counseling while you're married, it's like people probably think that, okay, things are going wrong.
Right.
But absolutely not. I mean, it's something that we've thought about and we've talked about as well. But I think it is even important while being married.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, because on this program, we have always endeavored to keep things real, real people. And I'm glad you raised that because some persons who think, as you rightly said, that once you're married, it's over. And sometimes the counseling become even so much more important after being married. I was referencing recently about after sometimes 5, 7. In fact, I was making mention of how important it is to have some significant things about your honeymoon. That's what I was talking about.
Yes.
Whether it is in a 5-star hotel or not, or under 5 stars. But it's important that those times count so that when the so-called low times come in the marriage, you can reflect on those and it generate a new feeling, a new interest. So I just wanted to underscore that, for persons who are tuning in, for them to understand that there's a place for continued counseling in their marriage.
That's right.
And it may come in different forms. Sometimes those couples come together, and that kind of group counseling session. Yes?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's important because, when you meet someone and you're in that honeymoon phase and that kind of euphoric state where, everything is good, sitting down with a counselor can bring that kind of realization to each individual that, I never really knew he was like that or she was like that or, and then in their cases where people have decided that this might not be the best timing now, let us continue. But it kind of puts that out on the table so persons can decide, okay, could be a potential issue or this is something that we can manage together or just know what to expect moving forward.
Sure.
Yeah, that's good. So did you cover how to manage money as a couple? Do you remember covering that in any of your sessions?
Or just broadly addressing issues of finances or...
Right.
Yes.
I actually don't recall covering
As a-
money.
Yes.
I don't think we did.
No, that wasn't.
But even if not, say, in those set sessions, coming from your financial debt and so on, Walrick, I'm sure there would have been some talking about money, of how to earn it, what's going to happen, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, coming from that place is not somewhere that I'd like to go back to.
Yes.
And I realized that there was, entering the relationship, I know in my mind that there were certain things that I wasn't prepared to do. I wasn't going to allow myself to live on a credit card or go back into debt. So I entered the relationship with certain things that I wanted to accomplish. But I think it's over time in the relationship, living together and getting bills and saying, okay, all right, what's your strengths? What's my strength?
Exactly.
You pay these bills, I pay these bills, because we all both have different strengths that we bring to the table. Sometimes I'm more of a structured, organized person. And then Kamika has her other skill sets as well. And I think both of us complement each other. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so, yes.
So then, the matter of how you deal with money was imposed on you because, like everybody else, because you're now married, you're living someplace, perhaps paying rent, having food bill, etc. So how early did this, if it did influence you now having to sit down and budget? And perhaps when, part B to that question, you may have thought that the 9-to-5 job may not cut it all together, so we need to look at how we, increase the income flow. Let me hear a little bit about that.
It's dying. Yes.
So, on the matter of a budget,
Yes.
before I got married, I was working because I started working before I met him. However, I just didn't, it was just not in my mind at all to budget. I was single. At the time, I was living with my parents. So I really didn't have any reason to. I did have a reason to, but it just didn't, dawn on me that this is something important. I didn't do any accounts in school. My money, I just didn't have any kind of knowledge of this going into marriage. So I didn't start budgeting, and not until we got married. And it wasn't even the beginning of marriage. It was into marriage when I realized, when things started to get, okay, I'm spending money, but something is not right.
You don't know where your money going.
Everything going.
I'm realizing that, we needed some help. We realized that, okay, now it's not just spend as I want, I realize that there's certain things that have to be done now that we are a part of a household. Certainly when children started to come in the picture. And when it got serious and I realized that, it wasn't working, it wasn't as smooth, talking about money. And, he was always encouraging me to write it down, He was always doing that. So he was already doing that. And he was doing it well, but I wasn't. So, yes. And, we're married 8 years and quite a few years I wasn't doing it. But then I realized the importance of it. So I started to do it.
Good.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's 100% no, but at least I have my little book and I write it down.
That's good, though.
And I'm always trying. I know that there's room for improvement and a lot of improvement. So that would be the next step for me to try and improve on that.
Yes.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention too is that even before I met him, I realized, to touch back on the topic of tithing, right when I started to work, I was becoming more spiritual. I realized my faith was getting deeper. And I came across, I think some program, some pastor, and they were talking about tithing, and I said, you know what, this is what I want to do. As soon as I get my first paycheck, this is what I want to do. And I did do it. And then even when I started, I wasn't doing it right, because I realized, okay, it's not the net pay he must tithe the whole gross pay.
Yeah.
So I made a commitment, and when I realized that, okay, I'm not doing the right thing, all right, I have to do everything at beginning, it was kind of a little daunting, but I was like, wow. But I said, no, Lord, this is what you asked for. And you said that, there's nothing that I'm going to need. I'm going to completely trust in you. And I think that has helped me a lot. And I, was able to, allow it to become a part of our marriage.
That's good.
To, try and enforce, saying that, all right, I want to tithe everything. So, I mean, that's important. So when it comes to money, that is the first thing for me.
Yes.
That the first thing that comes out of my salary has to be tithe. Yeah. And then, God will help the rest to go.
Yes.
Wayne
work out well.
Well, look, Wayne, because you're a little more structured as you're saying some things initially. And how is the budgeting thing going?
Well, it's important to know that I don't have an accounting background, and people don't need to have an accounting background to budget. You put down certain, your liabilities, your expenses. It's important that you put down something to save, no matter how much. Yes. You have to think about, you start working, yes, you want to think about stuff like retirement, and especially before you even have kids, you have to think about, this child is going to ultimately go to school, go to daycare, go to college. So what are those kind of plans in place? And it was important, I think, now with the whole COVID situation, it reinforced the point that having an emergency fund, having some resources stashed away is very important, because sometimes, you think you're working in a job for 10, 20 years and this happens and the company says, hey, you know what, we really can't afford you. So it gives you some cushion, but I think it's very important. And I think coming out of this whole situation, even for us, we're married for 8 years, but we're still work in progress. Right. And we're still learning. And at the same time, you want to save, but at the same time, I am always an advocate of doing stuff together, Yes. You're going to a 5-star hotel. Yes. I want not under the stars. I want you got a 5-star. Okay. But I'm an advocate because you can't live your life just to pay bills.
Right.
You don't want to be irresponsible, but you need to de-stress. You work hard, you have kids, and I think it's always good to put some money aside for that kind of, to build that relationship, especially with, two of us, yes, with the family, with the kids, but it's important, I think, for the couples or, to spend that quality time with each other.
We had the good privilege of talking to the Peddies, accomplishing their own rights as professionals, very occupied with 2 children. Nonetheless, we have learned from their experience how they are going along, and clothed with humility by saying they don't think they have arrived, but it's a work in progress. It is very also noteworthy that at the center of their lives, unapologetically, they make it clear that God is at the center. After all, where else could God be when they met in the church? It was in the church that Walrick went and proposed, initially, Natalie.
Yes.
To Kamika, right. Whom he has been scouting out for a while. Mm-hmm. I guess they might say, if you want a good wife, go to church. But it will be so much for us here as they have shared about money matters and their general lives. We thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kamika Peddy, for coming and speaking to us. Thank you so much, Walrick Peddy, International Development Officer and Health and Wellness Coach. We appreciate both of you being here. I want to thank our sponsor again, Mattox Health and Fitness. Thank you again to our hardworking team, George Malcolm Walker, our producer, and Damian D'Aguilar, our program director, for making this possible. We want to also implore you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Foundation Christian Ministries. Follow us on Instagram at B1 Marriage Ministry and on Facebook at New Foundation Christian Ministries. Thank you so much. See you again next time. Goodbye.
Indeed.